Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Saturday, January 13th, 2018. Just coming on to do a quick recap of Winter Storm Hunter, but first I wanted to go to the space weather section of the grandsolarminimum.com, kind of look at what's going on right now. As far as right now, we have elevated solar wind speeds at just a little bit over 500. It looks like we're in the 510 area right now. The solar wind density has gone down, and normally I observed earlier today we were in the 330s. Density was at a 19 to 21. Obviously, when the wind is slower, the density will be thicker, and right now it's sped up to a little over 515 kilometers per second, and that density has dropped way down now to around 7. So we have that going on, and there was a chance of some minor G1 activity today, as we'll take a look at the KP here. Sunspot AR2695 is actually not there anymore. According to SPACEWEATHER.com, we are sitting at 0. Today is the first day at 0. Now, at last check, we had KP indices at the 4 mark, so we're not quite storm levels. Storm levels need to go about 5. So right now, we definitely see an increase of solar wind speed, though. As you check it out here, the yellow, we were in the low 300s, about to dip under 300, and then like NASA and NOAA predicted, that minor unrest geomagnetic storm, I think we've peaked somewhere around 550 on the solar wind speed, but we'll keep our eyes on that, but nothing major expected out of that, just a minor storm. So current look at the LASCO. And of course, go ahead and take a look at our star for any new forming coronal holes. Whoops, not that. I'll get there in a second, guys.
Do you need help?
I got it, thank you. You're always willing to help, and I appreciate that.
I was just getting myself into the chat.
All right, taking a look at the SDO. We have a couple areas to watch in the eastern limb, almost directly in the equatorial region. You do see a coronal hole forming, pretty decent size. So we could see a G1, G2 kind of storm from this particular area. Also, looking at the angstrom here in the 194, I think, again, if I'm not mistaken, we do have some of those, we can catch a little bit of the loops right here again, just like the other day, but this one is not as, oh, yeah.
Let me just adjust
there you go.
I'll move this little guy down there. There you go. How's that?
That's better. Thank you. So again, we see the loops in the about the 10:30, about the 9:30, 10 o'clock region of the sun on the eastern limb. Once again, that side has been active, keeping our eyes on that. But other than that, we don't have any visible sunspots to speak of at this time. And like I said, we do have the coronal hole forming on the eastern limb in the equatorial region that should be Earth facing within the next 2 to 3 days. All right. So I want to go over a couple of storm totals from Winter Storm Hunter, and I wanted to bring in some snow totals here in the New York area according to the Weather Service here in Buffalo. Rochester, you know, these totals, I think these were called in, you know, according to this was posted today. I'm not sure, okay, this hasn't been updated since 5 this morning. But so as of early morning here in Rochester, they received 10.5 inches, Penfield 16 inches, Webster 14, Honey Falls 12.5, Wadsworth got 14.2, and you know, I haven't seen any totals out here in the Buffalo metro area yet.
You know, I haven't looked. I know just from shoveling and looking outside and all that, we got well over a foot.
It's at least
here.
a foot.
Buffalo, especially where we have been living, has been, you know, under siege with flood. So we've had our hands full the past couple days. Yeah, and just to kind of add to that before we wrap up and everything, the scene yesterday was almost like out of a movie, with the police up and down the street, the gas company in the red jumpsuits, and then I find out on social media that I guess the police were in our neighborhood knocking on doors trying to wake people up because the river, and Maury has footage of a creek from down the street from us. We're about 3 blocks from this creek, and apparently it was getting ready to crest. Now,
Have you ever heard of that happening in this part of town where rivers like that are cresting?
Not in this area.
Because that berry is high, isn't it?
I've lived in the neighborhood around here in different areas for a long time. And we do border the Buffalo River. And I was concerned, I was just talking to you about this morning, how I posted the floods in September. We were getting the flash floods and all that, and I was looking at the different creeks and rivers and how I remember them versus how they are, and I just kept on stressing to the point that I was concerned about how high they were when it comes to the snowmelt of this winter. And sure enough, you know, we get the snowstorm last week. We have a rapid melt. There's ice jams. One of my properties, because I'm in property management, one of my properties had 1.5 feet of water standing in the basement. It's a miracle the furnace still works, and I had everything else up. But I mean, 1.5 feet of water is very significant. And all the years I've owned that particular house, never seen anything like it. So it's very concerning to me because we have another almost 8 inches of snow with forecasted more rapid snowmelt, and then another foot maybe, who knows, another wicked storm on the way on top of that. It's going to be very interesting. Yeah,
and you know, you mentioned about the rapid melt. We're going to get to 46, that's the high, but 46 degrees and rain in the forecast as well. That's still going to accelerate the melt rate here. And while you were talking about your properties, and I'm thinking about, I know there's 2 creeks, small rivers near us, and thinking about how the one property got so much water, it was about 1.5 feet of water that was being held, which I'm just shocked it was that high in there. And seeing the river so high down the street from where we live, and then just a couple blocks down our main road from us, we cross over a bridge, that water is high. It makes you wonder, as saturated as our yards are right now, it makes you really wonder how much more of this rapid melt can we handle, on top of that with 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of rain with it. And then bam, we get froze again. It's been a nightmare. I can tell you right now, being a homeowner in Western New York, you're dealing with frozen pipes, you're dealing with busted pipes, you're dealing with flooded basements. I mean, you're dealing with, this is every day it's something. And I can say right now, the rapid freeze and then the rapid melt is definitely, this is one of the craziest storms I've ever witnessed in my 39 years of my life. But taking a look at the GFS for this week, we'll start on Sunday. Quiet day finally for most of us. A little bit of disturbance coming out of Canada. This is just a clipper system. It's probably going to drop about 1 to 3 inches in most places. It's out of here quickly. It does bring some weather to the south again. We'll see some snow. And then this was what Mari was talking about later in the week, around Friday, Saturday. We're going to get some warmer air trying to move in, and it does reach us in the northeast. But look at this. By Sunday of next week, about 8 days from now, they're forecasting a little bit warmer temperatures. When I say warmer, I'm talking in the 30s, low 40s. And here we have rain in the forecast. So we're going to be frozen. Snow's going to be here this entire time till next Sunday. It's going to start melting next weekend. And then we're supposed to expect a little bit of rain and possibly another system that formed kind of like Hunter, but not the rapid freeze. And this one's also suggesting a little bit less snow and more rain in the northeast. As that cold air now, this has been updated from what I saw earlier. They're now putting more snow back into the forecast in the northeast. But the first run of this, so this is going to change, obviously. This is a week out. But again, once that snowstorm leaves, we have some warmer air trying to work its way back in. Most of the country is about even kilt. The northeast still cold. The north is still cold. And then it looks like by the end of the month, one more push for a warm front. But I can tell you, I've looked at the models over and over. And this cold air polar vortex that could be happening at the end of this month, I think it's going to push it a little further down than what this GFS model is suggesting. So anyway, just wanted to step on and do a quick update tropical Winter Storm Hunter, we didn't put as much emphasis on this coverage of this storm. Mari and I were watching it closely last night, but really it was just a regular winter storm, typical weather that we're supposed to get in this part of the country.
Probably the most freakish was the instant plummet drop of temperature.
Yeah.
We were at, what was it, 54, and then we did a absolute straight
nosedive
to 44.
It was 41 degrees when we got home from the store. That was an hour and 15 minutes. We dropped 13 degrees in an hour and 15 minutes. And I kept my kid home from school because I didn't like how the timing of this freezing rain was. And I'm glad I did, because the freezing rain started here at 2:45, which is about the same time these kids get on the buses. So a little concerned as a parent why the school district takes that kind of a chance when it's going to cut it that close. But Buffalo Public Schools are pretty good. They have actually put out an announcement, and they've told parents that it is ultimately their decision to hold their children home from school if they feel like the weather is too inclement for them to be in. And in this case, with this rapid freezing, it was no joke. We've talked to people all over the country, and they saw some weather. The ice, the black ice was the worst. The rapid freeze. And, you know, here where we are, I'm sure most western New York, northern PA, and of course, you know, northeast Ohio, not only do you have about 8 to 14 inches of snow on the ground, but underneath that, you've got about 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch of ice underneath of it. So, very dangerous conditions for anyone to be out driving in. I'd say if you don't have to be out right now, don't. Give the crews plenty of time to get this mess cleaned up, because right now the temperatures are frigid, and this part of the country and most of the country right now is pretty cold. So just give them time to let these roads work themselves out, because there's no sense of trying to... I've seen way too much footage this year of people getting into accidents and pileups on the interstates as if we've never driven in the snow before. So if you don't have to be out, don't be out. Mari, do you have anything you want to add?
I just want to thank Scott for his generous donation and super chat. Thanks, buddy. We really appreciate it. It was very kind of you.
Once again, the work that we try to put out, guys, is just beneficial. We want to make it as simple as possible so everybody can learn, at least have a foundation and an understanding of the grand solar minimum and what's to come. And all we want is to make sure that people try to gain something from this, and this could just be added to your own research. We're not saying everything here is the word. Compile all of the different channels out there that you see, and you figure it out. I think it's going to be really easy and a lot clearer too. And Mari and I have started this new series of peer-reviewed papers that we will start releasing that show and prove that our climate is going to be cold. And a lot of them are saying, what, 2030s, 2040s, 2050s?
It varies depending on what paper. You know, you're talking 2030s, 2040s, 2050s, they're predicting. And it's just interesting to read all these scientific papers that are predicting global cooling and the reasons and their findings behind it. So, you know, we're going to be sharing them in a format, and I'll just set it up as a part of a series and a playlist so everyone has, you know, easy access to it right from the channel. And I'll probably put them on the website as time goes on as well.
I just think, you know, and peer-reviewed papers are great. These papers are done by well-educated people. But, you know, realistically, we could do this all day back and forth between the global warming community and
the papers are, the amount of papers that came out last year alone is very impressive when it came to discussing sun, climate change,
they have
natural
increased.
Cycles.
You're right. They have increased.
Debunking a lot of AGW things. You know, it's very interesting to see what's out there. Our job really is just to put the research out there for you guys to look at and make your own opinion. Open up a line of discussion in the chat, and you know, share ideas.
Yeah, Mari's working very hard to build this community for the grand solar minimum. People who really want to learn about it and who really want to find ways to thrive and survive in the grand solar minimum. And, you know, we'll talk about everything on our forums, from homesteading to, you know, preparation for the weather and what to expect in certain conditions. I mean, that's the only way, in my opinion. And honestly, folks, you know, with all these papers coming out, this is going to help you make your own decision when you could read the proof for yourself and the conclusions. Mari actually worked on all these conclusions by herself. She pulled them out of all these papers. So I'm not familiar with a lot of the peer-reviewed papers, and I know they can be difficult for people to read, especially ones who aren't used to them. So I really appreciate Mari taking the time to dissecting through and getting that conclusion pulled out. That way, a lot of people will start to look at it and like, get a little confused, and then go to the conclusion.
I know some of these papers that I have to go through, you actually have to either rent them or buy them.
Yeah, they're not free.
They cost money. I think some of them to rent are like $6. To actually buy them is $30. So, we just want to get the information out, and I'm going to do what I can within my reason to get it to you without having it cost any money. So I think if we buy the full version, it allows us to share it. At least I can take text out of it and share a conclusion without any weird copyright, issues. You got to be careful with that.
Yeah. And so, and that's why I say the donations, that's where I was going actually, Mari. The donations are appreciated just for the sake that we've learned really fast that some of this information you have to pay for. And I just, it kind of throws me for a loop. But it's crucial. It's critical information, and it's very important for people to know this stuff. That way they can understand better what's going on and not, I had a comment in the comment section a few days ago, and the person was pointing out that, all these different cold weather events throughout his history of his life, and, no grand solar minimum. Folks, we need to remember that the grand solar minimum is a cycle that happens every 206 years. I'm not saying just because we're having cold winter right now that this is proof of the grand solar minimum. The proof is already out there with thousands of scientists who are putting out papers on a daily basis now that prove that we're heading into a grand solar minimum. The weather is only just reacting to what's happening with our sun. And the one conclusion I read today where it just comes out and says it, sunspots are, they produce more energy, and without sunspots, the sun emits less energy, and less energy leads to cooler temperatures. And you factor in that with all these volcanoes that we have erupting right now. Everywhere you look, the last 2 days, we've had some really old volcanoes. Well, actually, the one that's erupting today, 3 years ago, was the last time it erupted. But still, 2 days in a row where Mari is able to report on a new volcano that wasn't going off. So, it's been a busy week, and we expect it to probably be busy in some degree if it's not weather related, space weather related as well. So, well, guys, we'll keep you up to date. Thanks for tuning in. We will talk soon.